Nice to be able to be here to speak with all of you. Jeff had asked me to kind of take the first 10 minutes just to kind of give a background of kind of how I landed in this role and kind of what my philosophy is of being a chief medical officer. As you mentioned, I was a practicing general surgeon for 15 years. And the 10 best years of my career were back when I was in San Diego down there at Sharp. And then I kind of saw the writing on the wall of small group practice at that time. And it didn't look like things were going to be sustainable. Looks like by now they may have been, but I made the leap to jump to a large multi-specialty group, which in a different town, which was not a very positive experience. I kind of had my way of doing things and they had their way that they wanted me to do things. And I realized the one thing I gave up that I missed the most was autonomy. And I kind of went down the physician burnout path. And after about 3 years, just decided I was going to hang it up from clinical practice. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I knew I just couldn't keep doing what I was doing. So my wife and I moved to Sacramento to be close to our grandson. And I took almost a year off to kind of reflect on, how things ended up the way they did and where I was going to go next. And it was actually then that I realized that I had burned out, didn't recognize it at the time. And that kind of gave me a new why, which was to try to pivot and go back to school, get an MBA and transition into administration and try to find myself into a CMO role so that I can grease the skids of the docs who are still in practice. And so I went back to school to get the MBA. As Jeff told you, I got a job as a medical director at a independent practice association. It was transactional utilization management. It was absolutely mind-numbing, but it was easy work. They had me up and running in 2 days and I couldn't believe they paid me as much as they did to do it. And it was very easy to balance that with the MBA. A Dignity Health recruiter reached out to me about a year after that for this physician advisory job, which I moved into. And then our CMO at the time, after I'd been there about a year, got promoted to hospital president elsewhere. And I threw my hat in the ring for his job, not expecting to get it, given that I only had a couple of years of admin experience and they were actually going to do a nationwide search to replace him. And I must have done something right in the interviews or said something right because I ended up getting the job. I've been it for 2.5 years now, actually almost 3 years. And I like to tell people that it's the hardest job I've ever loved. I'm in a position where I get to interact regularly with the medical staff. I frequently have breakfast in the doctor's lounge whenever, and with whoever's in there. I kind of get the pulse of the medical staff from there. Kind of touched on my philosophy a little bit, and I'll go into that a little more. I see my why as, trying to facilitate the practices of the physicians and advanced practice providers who work out of our facility. And I want to make sure that they don't go down the burnout path that I did. And, we still need docs to take care of patients, and there aren't enough CMO jobs for everybody. So I want to make sure that people are able to enjoy their practice. And there are a couple of things that I've learned that I think are big engagement factors for the majority of our medical staff. And there are two things that aren't done regularly enough, I think. I mean, how many times have you learned about a new policy for the first time when you bumped up against it? Does that resonate with anybody? Yeah, I remember experiencing that too. And so I feel you can't over communicate. I sent out a weekly newsletter to our med staff, updating them on everything that transpired the previous week. Within the admin suite, any big occurrences now with COVID. I also am big on recognitions. We have 2 recognitions that kind of the medical staff help drive. One of them is the Physician Gratitude Award, which if a physician reaches out to me to tell me a staff member went above and beyond, we get a cadre of people from the admin suite to go track that person down and give them that recognition in front of their peers, take pictures with them. And then I put those pictures in my newsletter with the nomination write-up so that everyone else can see it. And more specifically, the person who made the nomination can see it. And so they know that, everyone knows we're listening to them. And then we came up with the Top Doc Award, which, I'd like to be able to give a doc money for going above and beyond, but I don't want to go to Stark jail. So we have a nice badge lanyard. I don't have one here to show you, but it's black and it says Mercy General Hospital Top Doc on it. And again, if we I get a nomination for a physician that's gone above and beyond, we get a group of admin and go find that person. You know, it's a surgeon. We catch them in the morning before the OR, or office-based physicians. Sometimes we catch them when they're rounding. Hospitalists are oftentimes easy to track down. And again, we take pictures with them and put that photo in the newsletter, so that kind of highlight, the good work that people are doing every day. And just those two things, the recognitions and the communication piece, really seems to go a long way with med staff engagement. I get a lot of replies to the email that I sent out that it enjoys fairly high readership, which I really appreciate. It's something that I spend most of my Friday morning writing, and it's kind of written with a personalized, lighthearted writing style. It's not like bullet points or cut and paste or anything like that, like I've seen a lot of other newsletters. As the philosophy really is that, I'm fortunate we have a really great culture in our admin suite. Our hospital president is a true servant leader in every sense of the word. He gives us, the VP team, the triad of the COOs, chief nurse, and me, kind of the general strategy each week at our meetings of what we need to get accomplished, and he leaves it up to us to figure out how to do it. And that trickles down into the culture of the organization. And, that's my role, is to serve the medical staff. What they need, they know they can call me. I had an angry interventional cardiologist today call me about some staffing shortages in the Cath Lab today. And after he got done venting, he said, thanks. He said, I don't have a scratching post anywhere else except for you. And so I enjoy getting those calls. Sometimes they're challenging, sometimes they don't come at the best time, but just the fact that the med staff feel they can reach out to me and count on me for things tells me I'm doing something right, I think. And I think these are the kind of administrative types that we need in administrative suites across the country. And we're very fortunate right now, because the one thing that I'll say about Dignity Health as an organization, Common Spirit Health, is they're big on physician leadership. And we have a chief medical officer at the system level, Dr. Bob Lee, who's just a wonderful guy, and very humble, very down to earth, once again, a servant leader. And he's done a lot to develop physician leaders within the organization through various programs. He's done like physician leadership development program and the like. And we have a fairly unique division. I'll just share that Common Spirit Health was formed, if you don't already know, was formed by the merger of Dignity Health and Catholic Health Initiatives. CHI had about 100 hospitals, Dignity had 40. So we now, under Common Spirit, have 140 hospitals across 26 states. And we're the largest not-for-profit hospital chain in the country. And it's Catholic organization, mission driven. You can't have one system office controlling 140 hospitals, because that would be chaos there. So we're broken up into divisions, and our Northern California division is made up of 13 hospitals. And our division president is actually an anesthesiologist, or retired anesthesiologist, who was a CMO at, who first was an anesthesiologist at Swedish and up in Washington State, became chief of staff, then jumped over to CMO, then went to COO, then became president over 5 hospitals up there, and then got recruited to run the Bay Area division down here. And he's had progressively larger progressively more divisions put under him, so that now he has 13 hospitals under him. And he's very strong on physician leadership. And he will tell you that his 2 most important goals are patient safety and quality. And if you get those right, the finances will follow. I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure you probably feel the same way. That's the way I ran my practice when I was in practice. Because if I took good care of the patients, the referrals would follow and money would follow. And so the philosophy resonated with me. And then the nice thing about having him at the helm is we have a division chief medical officer as well, who I report to directly in my dotted lines to our hospital president. The division chief medical officer is basically his right hand, because he likes her because she's a doctor also. And she's pulmonary critical care trained. but now is full-time administration. And so he pretty much runs the division through her, and she pretty much runs the hospitals through the CMOs. And I guess, hope that wasn't too rambling. I didn't have anything particularly prepared for this. So that's kind of a bit about who I am and where I am and where I want to go.
So Brent, I'm going to have some open discussion here with you, and certainly folks can pose the questions directly to you. Our format is that in about I think 10, 15 minutes, we'll go into a breakout. And then the breakouts are not recorded. Hopefully to bring down a little bit of the barrier to helping people feel that their conversations or comments are more confidential and a safe space to maybe say some other things. But this part is recorded, and so people that want to hear some of the perspectives in a recorded fashion, that's what we're doing right now. I'll start with one question, which is a little bit that anecdote that you shared with the irate physician who was, frustrated by something, and they commented about having sort of a scratching board. What do you kind of do next? Because I do think that there's an element that having someone to listen, who at least can appreciate what we're venting about, versus venting to someone who doesn't even appreciate or acknowledge it. So that's worse, right? But it does feel like a hope that, hey, this is kind of like my direct communication of a written email complaining about something, and that at least it would be trended, or at least it would be acknowledged that, maybe this isn't high in your priorities, but notice what I'm frustrated with, so that you can be looking at the bigger picture to try and help us come up with solutions. So I'm rambling a little bit, like, what are your next steps after somebody vents to you in that way?
So it's a good question, because, some of the things, everything he complained about was legit. And it's things that we have been actively working on, but they're things that do not fix themselves overnight. And I'll be fully transparent about it. I was transparent with him, and I'll be transparent with you all. Our Cath Labs, first of all, I don't know if you know this about Mercy General, but we have the second highest volume of cardiac bypass and valves done in the state of California. And we do more AFib ablations than anywhere in the country. Our cardiac service line, we're only like 250 bed hospital, but our cardiac service line is a powerhouse, and we've got some really strong talent there. And there's no parts to be able to fix it. So we've been kind of shuffling things around. We've got a hybrid OR in the CD OR that some of the heart surgeons don't like to use, so they're able to do some Cath Lab cases over there to try to decompress. We're having a perfect storm of events. We have that happen, and then we have the California state mandate for the COVID vaccine went live on October 1st, and we had a number of people in both the cardiac ICU, the cardiac OR, and in the Cath Labs who did not get their requested exemptions and chose not to be vaccinated and chose to leave the organization. And so we are now short-staffed as well. And so we were down to 2 rooms in the CVOR today. And then one of the surgeons had a dissection that had to go. And so 2 of their TAVRs got bumped and had to be canceled. And so he called me, about all of these issues. And the Cath Lab, I was able to explain to him that, we get it, and first of all, as a surgeon, I've had stuff go down to me in cases before. I know it's suboptimal. I hear you. We have a plan to replace the Cath Lab, and our new CFO is awesome, by the way. And she really listens, wants to help, and will go fight for capital for us, which she has done. We've gotten a commitment to and a plan to replace both Cath Labs and one of our EP labs, which is also end of service within the next year and a half. But it's going to take a year and a half. That's the bad news. because of all the OSHPOD approvals that have to be done, and then getting the equipment there, and then getting the construction work done, and then taking the old equipment out and putting the equipment in is something that takes months. And so we'll be able to hobble along with what our plan is now, as long as another Cath Lab doesn't go down. So explain that piece to him, explain the staffing piece that, you know, we've given cash incentives, we're actively recruiting, actively trying to hire, but, you know, we have to get people through the hiring process. We have to be able to get them through the new employee orientation process. So again, that's not going to happen overnight either, but this is something that we've had in the works for some time. And we're working on it. And just the fact that I listened to him and was able to express understanding of his frustrations and tell him that we're actively doing something about it. Just the fact that all three of those things were there, you know, really kind of, you know, changed his mood. And he got off the call in a lot better mood than he was when he got on the call, when he called me. I wish I could tell him that, you know, first of all, I wish we'd never been in this situation, but the fact is we can't turn back the clock. This is where we are now. That's where we're going. This is our path to get there.
Thank you. Anyone else in our group have a question for our open session?
Just getting back to what you alluded to, things don't fix themselves in a very rapid fashion, but things often break themselves seemingly overnight or predictably, as you alluded to also. What can you as an administration learn from this so that maybe the next time at one of the other hospitals, I mean, is this something, because I've seen it over and over again, that, well, we're going to keep the purse strings tight until there's a disaster, and then it's going to take us 1.5 years to get, there's not really a lot of learning on the side of the dollar people. So